So today's message is Many Ways to Be Blessed, Part 3. So we get 3 episodes out of this one Sermon on the Mount series. So I hope you enjoyed the first 2 sermons. Our first sermon was outside in our outdoor service. And last week we had our second message. And all of that is on YouTube in case you missed out. And just to give you a recap of the first 6 blessings we looked at the last 2 Sundays, I'll read these 6 blessings as a refresher before we dive in more today for our final 3 blessings. So the first 6 blessings goes like this. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. And blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. So, as you can see, the first 6 seem fairly lighthearted. Okay? I mean, people will have different opinions about that, but it seems dual. It seems like spiritual practice or spiritual disciplines. But starting with blessing number 7, seems the blessings become much harder to come by. Of course, Jesus is going to give us the truth that this world is not going to be easy. Okay, you probably already know that, right? Many of you, okay, many of us, okay. And yet Jesus shows us what it takes to overcome the world. So blessing number 7 in Matthew 5:9 says this: Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Peacemaking sounds easy until you actually try to do it. Does that make sense? This sounds like such a peaceful word. You know, peacemaker, now we'll be children of God. That sounds so nice. But being a peacemaker is a lot harder nowadays. I mean, it's always been hard, but it seems like especially hard nowadays. It almost feels like being a rebel to be a peacemaker now. Right? According to James Gunn, the director of the new Superman movie, in case you watched it, he said to portray Superman in a new way, being a peacemaker made him more of a rebel, apparently. So, which I agree, especially in this day and age where it seems the rhetoric and tone and just speech in general has lost its way. Now with cancel culture and extremism and all these different things, and social media and things like that, our words have a lot of power, and at the same time, it can be used the wrong way. So Superman, this particular Superman by James Gunn, would do anything to rescue a dog or a squirrel. Not just a human being, but anything that needs to be saved. Anything and everything. So he was truly a peacemaker in a world where people can be careless. So we find ourselves walking on eggshells if we speak or do the right thing that has anything to do with peacemaking. However, Jesus always knew that peacemaking is at the heart of being blessed. You know, and being a peacemaker is what makes us the children of God. And this is a high calling. But what if we need to first make peace with ourselves in order to be a peacemaker? You know, have you noticed people who are really good at peacemaking understand what peace looks like for themselves? Okay? They have done the inner work. You know, they have made peace with their past traumas. They have prayed and lifted all their burdens up to God. Now, I saw this movie called Heal. And this person who did everything right, ate healthy, exercised, even did yoga, but for some reasons she still got stage 4 cancer and had only 1% chance to live. And he eventually found a spiritual healer to help her to not be afraid to die. And this process, she realized that there were some deep emotional trauma that she needed to work on. So the spiritual healer told her to start forgiving the past by throwing rocks. So she went to this retreat center in this wilderness. She just started throwing rocks on stuff. Just really said, whatever, whoever you need to forgive or whatever, just throw it as hard as possible out there. Throw these rocks and let go. And it was a form of experiential healing and forgiveness. So she just released everything. Her hurts, her trauma that she didn't even know she was holding all this time until she had someone to talk to her. And this helped her experience release from the trauma that she had. And she finally made peace with herself and let go of any emotional bondages that affected her life. And this restored her body and cured up her cancer, which is pretty amazing. So she made peace with her upbringing. And when we make peace with our own upbringing, make peace from our own mistakes, peace of what we just don't have control over, like how other people treated us. When we surrender our lives, then we can make peace with God. And only then can we truly be a peacemaker. When we make peace with our Creator and the Creator of the heavens and the earth, then we can make peace with anybody, including the world around us. So being a child of God means we inherit everything God has. It's truly an honor to be a child of God. But we must know that being a peacemaker, as great as it sounds, is not easy to do normally. So our next blessing is this. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. It's interesting that Jesus brings up the word righteousness again. But this time in a way that helps people know the reality, the high stakes of living this way. Do you know that some people can be persecuted for the sake of righteousness? What does it mean to be persecuted? Like a physical harm, social exclusion, verbal abuse, legal injustice, and even martyrdom. Which is how many people, like prophets and disciples, died, including Jesus himself. And you would think doing the right thing is what everyone would welcome, but this is not the case, especially in our world. Some reasons for this, according to AI, is this. Faithfulness provokes opposition. So everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted, according to 2 Timothy 3:12. Truth challenges power. So prophets and disciples often confronted corrupt leaders and systems. Spiritual warfare. Persecution reflects the clash between light and darkness. John the Baptist, who baptized Jesus before he started his ministry, public ministry, had all the signs of being righteous and competed with the people with power of his day. And he baptized people with water so they could experience forgiveness. But then all these people started following him and listening to him than the people with power. And yet, that's why he was persecuted for his righteousness. And the last blessing Jesus teaches is in line with the previous blessing. It says, "Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." Do you ever feel like, as a Christian, people say all kinds of evil against you, especially falsely? Has that ever happened to you? Well, this is especially true in other countries where faith is not accepted, where our faith is not accepted. So I remember when I was on a mission trip to China, we went on a mission trip and we smuggled Bibles from Hong Kong to China and Tibet. And in order to do that, we had to get some training in Hong Kong. And they said to smuggle Bibles in from Hong Kong to China, you have to make sure you let the people know that these are history books. Okay? If you fumble that word, that's the code word. The Bible is history books. But if you fumble that, or if you say, oh yeah, like you make a mistake, guess what? They're going to know to check your bag. And then once they check your bag, then obviously you got caught. And then what happens when you get caught? You get interrogated, you get everything confiscated. Okay? And so there was a group of people that did get, confiscated their Bibles, and they got interrogated for many hours. And thankfully, this other team had their U.S. passports, so they were able to get released. The others that did not, they were in jail, okay, just for bringing Bibles to China. And so this is back in 2001. So I don't know how things have changed since then, but that's how serious it is. So the past prophets also had to deal with situations where they were persecuted. And Joseph in the book of Genesis was even betrayed by his brothers, because the brothers thought that the father loved Joseph the most. Okay? He had special favor from his father. But eventually, Joseph ended up saving the whole family once the brothers sold him to, slavery, and then he somehow came back out of that. And then he became second in command. And he was able to save the people from famine, and he was able to help his family again. And he actually forgave the family. So David was also hunted, despite his loyalty to King Saul. Why did this happen? It's often because of jealousy and envy. King Saul was tired of David getting all the attention that he felt he deserved because of his title. When you're the king, you feel like you should get the most respect, you should get the most attention. But instead, this David was getting all this attention, because he was really skilled in music, and he was also skilled in battle, and a lot of people really liked him. So, but lots of times, even we as people, we believe the title that we have will change our life, or that promotion, or that corner office, or that pay raise, or that extra degree or certification is going to change our life. But what really helps people change their lives the most is by living in the truth. So why do I say truth? Because that's what the prophets did in the Bible. They spoke the truth in the way they lived their lives. And especially people of power were highly jealous when people with less power had more people liking them and listening to them, which is what I call being blessed. In our world, where our credentials seem to matter the most, in God's world, what matters is having a heart of truth embedded in our character. And this is how Jesus lived a blessed life and shared his blessings with men. He was able to teach many ways to be blessed because he experienced all these blessings in his life. And he was able to share them with others. For example, would you ever trust somebody who is unfit to be a health coach? Would you ever be able to trust a personal trainer who is unfit to train you physically, help you? Probably not. But if the person is healthy and lived that way, then I would trust that person to offer health advice, okay, and coach me in personal training. And Jesus also knew that, because Jesus knew God in a personal way. And many people who were blessed before him, and so he saw that life, and they lived so he could also teach them. So what we realize from these Bible characters being persecuted is that they faced the Lord, not just in the comforts of their home, but in the public, of helping the people and the neighbors that are affected by the daily injustices of our world. These people were not just people who marched the streets. They actively spoke the truth, lived a life that helped others, even as it meant it would change the dynamics of where they stood in the face of God. So I would say a modern-day prophet is like a whistleblower in a huge corporation, which brought down Enron and even kept Boeing in check, to make sure the planes are safe to fly, and make sure financial gains is not the only goal in a company of success. Or that's not the only measure. So because we live in a world where corporate greed has taken over, but instead of doing the right thing for the good of humanity and the world. So Christianity is standing up for our faith in what is right, for all of humanity and all of God's creation, not just for our own nation. Remember, as a Christian, our citizenship is in heaven, not in our own country. We may have been born or naturalized in this country, but our true citizenship represents all nations, because Jesus said to make disciples of all nations. Not just one nation above another nation. So all nations can be blessed by God. So at First Presbyterian Church of Itasca, I believe we are on a crossroad. Okay? A crossroad is kind of there's different paths we can take. We are blessed in many ways. And now we need to choose to be a blessing to everyone as well. So for our church to continue to grow, we need leaders. Some people willing to say yes to be a leader, to be an officer, to be an elder or a deacon. Now, every year we need new leaders, and people willing to serve the church so we can make a positive impact in the lives of others. So will you listen and follow God's call? In September, we'll have that leadership orientation that I mentioned earlier to discuss what it takes to be an elder or a deacon, and any questions that you may have if you're interested. But first, for those of you that are not members of the church, you need to be a member. So we have the new members class coming up that you can be a part of, and then you could, if God is calling you, and if you feel interested in being an officer of the church, then you can join our September leadership orientation. And I do hope and pray that you consider, with the gifts that you have, with the life blessings that you have, to consider being a blessing to the life of others. Because that's what is going to create peacemaking in the world that we live in a world that's desperate for peace. Because Jesus showed the way to be a blessing. And he gave us 9 different ways we can be blessed. And I believe God can also use all of us to be a blessing in many ways to our neighbors as well. Amen? Amen. All right. So, Spencer, if you want to come up. And Hal and Spencer has a wonderful summer worship song.